Welcome into Dolphins postgame on PB Post Dolphins. And Dolphins do not come out on top, Habib. Joe Schad here. 38-6. Ravens come out the victor. Dolphins really just got drilled from the start in this game. They had a chance to cut it to 7-3 with an Andrew Franks field goal. It was all downhill from there, Hal. What jumps out to you, Hal?
Just the enormity of this game, I think, the way it went. I mean, when you try to look at positives from the Dolphins' perspective, what comes to mind?
JJ did okay.
He ran hard.
He somehow averaged more than 5 yards per carry.
Right.
And I guess Brandon Albert and Laramie Tunsil did okay. Albert was not very encouraged with the way he played. Devontae Parker, who declined for some reason to speak to the media after the game. I have no idea what is going through young Devontae Parker's head, but you know, it's a good story. I mean, the guy came out and played despite a back injury, caught a touchdown pass, made a few nice plays.
A nice touchdown catch, too, yeah.
Declined to speak to the media. So did a few other players. So after 6 straight wins, this is not the locker room we've been accustomed to during the Dolphins winning streak. So Dolphins fall to 7-5. If the Broncos win or are winning, it's over. So the Dolphins are currently out of the playoff. That's why I got you here, Hal.
And that's why right now I think we're really going to find out a lot about the Dolphins in the next week. We knew going in this was going to be a tough game, and as it turned out, it was more than a tough game. But it's one thing to win 6 in a row, and that's great. The Dolphins haven't done that in ages. We all know that. But now we're going to see, how do they bounce back from this?
Alfredo says defense got exposed. That is a fair point. It's been a little bit of smoke and mirrors for Vance Joseph throughout the season. There are some really skilled players on this team, and Ndamukong Suh, who was not seen or heard from in this game. Cameron Wake, who was not seen or heard from in this game. We did see Kiko Alonso after the game, and Kiko has what looks to be a thumb in a cast, a soft cast. We're not sure if it's a broken thumb or fractured thumb or torn ligaments, but he said he was not in that much pain, and obviously he was able to finish the game. Nobody had an explanation for why the Dolphins couldn't cover Dennis Pitta and the other Ravens tight ends.
Right, the tight ends just coming across the middle absolutely killed them. I think it's a combination. When you look at the defensive line, and I think in my report card I gave the line an F, because look at who they have on the line. And the fact of the matter is Joe Flacco was as uncomfortable and inconvenienced in the pocket as we are doing this Facebook Live right now. He had all day to just survey the field, go through his progressions, pick out his guys. He was just never really under any kind of pressure.
So in the secondary, Tony Lippett struggled. Byron Maxwell had a few poor plays. Bakari Rambo seemed confused after the game. He took blame for some plays, but he wasn't exactly sure which calls to take blame for. He just knew that he deserved to take some blame. I didn't see Issa Abdul Quddus, but there seemed to be some communication issues in the back end. There was that 18-play, 9-minute scoring drive, which of course was capped by a touchdown pass to Dennis Pitta for the 21-0 or 21-7 lead at that point. The game was over, really.
It never seemed to end. It just went on and on. There was a big conversion or two in there. The Dolphins just could not do anything to get off the field at that point. And, one word that comes to mind that Adam Gase used in the postgame was avalanche. And he wasn't paying homage to the NHL Colorado franchise.
Yeah.
He meant that there was just an avalanche of plays that all of them seemed to go Baltimore's way.
Yeah, I noticed Adam Gase approach Ryan Tannehill and Matt Moore in the Dolphins locker room, and I did not hear what he said, but he basically seemed to be saying, nothing could have gone worse than it went today. Tannehill threw 3 interceptions for the first time this season. He had protected the football, did not protect the football efficiently today. Mm-hmm. He took a sack on a bootleg, which is uncharacteristic. You know that you have to throw it away on a naked bootleg. I see Skip is asking about Vance Joseph. Just so you know, in general, coordinators are not available after the game. Mm-hmm. Some players weren't available after the game today. In general, we've given Vance Joseph some kudos for smoke and mirrors. The fact that the secondary it doesn't have any stars, especially with the loss of Schad Jones, and they've still limited the passing yards per game. But last 2 weeks now, average offense is finding ways to tear apart the Dolphins defense. And this is the kind of team that it seems how can't afford to lose a Kiko Alonso, can't afford to lose a Tony Lippett. On that drive, there was some confusion because Lippett goes out, Bobby McKeon goes to corner, Michael Thomas is now in the slot. So there's Mike Hull is now a middle linebacker, and Mike Hull is a great special teamer. He is a tough-nosed player, and he actually made a few plays. I agree with you, Paul Wyatt. The Dolphins do need upgrades at linebacker.
Absolutely.
Jelani Jenkins didn't play. Neville Hewitt and Spencer Pasinger, didn't do much.
No, and that's the thing.
Is that the first priority right there?
I really think so. I mean, they need help. I wouldn't mind seeing maybe Kiko scoot to the outside and get that.
He wants
Zach
to play
Thomas
inside
type, who can be a real run stuffer. But there was just so much going on defensively. At one point, I looked out on the field, and it was sort of like, who are those guys out there? Because there are so many guys banged up to begin with, and then guys like Alonso were getting treatment in the locker room. And yeah, you can point a finger at Vance Joseph if you like, but at a certain point you lose so much. I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses for the guy, but eventually attrition becomes a factor in this league.
Well, I asked Andre Branch why they were unable to sack Joe Flacco, who is not Colin Kaepernick, even once.
Right.
I mean, he was untouched in this game. He checked out of the ball game without getting hit. I mean, there were no tackles for loss. There were 2 quarterback hits in the whole game, and Branch said, well, they had a quick passing game. Well, there were some quick passes, but there were some downfield passes too.
There were a lot of downfield passes. Flacco, looking at the numbers, completed 36 passes today. Wow. That matches his career high, I believe it was. 381 yards. Flacco's he's good. He's okay, but is he 381 yards good? No. I mean, 4 touchdowns. The Ravens came out of this with 496 yards in offense. Here's a killer stat: 4 for 4 in the red zone.
2 for 2 on 4th down.
Yeah.
Actually, the Dolphins are 0 for 4 on 4th down this year, and opponents, I believe, are 8 for 11, which is a very telling stat. How are opponents 8 for 11 on 4th down when the Dolphins were first in the NFL on 3rd down defense? This whole thing, it's so confusing. Weird. And we talked before the game, Hal, about a few things. We talked about how the Ravens had allowed the fewest first downs in the game and how the Dolphins had the second fewest first downs in the game. That came to fruition. The Dolphins really were never a threat offensively.
We talked about turnovers.
We talked about turnovers. The Dolphins turned the ball over. And to be fair, Hal, I did bring up Dennis Pitta and the fact that Kiko Alonso had a hamstring, Jelani Jenkins wasn't playing.
Right.
And if you read the Daily Dolphin blog, which is one of my favorites.
Shameless plug.
Somebody asked about Xavier Howard. Maybe. By the way, Mike Pouncey was not ready to say if or when he will be returning. There seems to be some thought around the team that maybe in a week or two, Pouncey would return to the practice field, but in the locker room, Mike Pouncey wasn't making any promises. Was Ajayi used enough? I mean, here's the thing. I mean, how
much are you going to run
when you're trailing
you're behind right up
28-7 or whatever,
You got to throw the ball. As a matter of fact, there was
12
a point.
carries.
There was a point.
By the way, I beat you on the bet. 61 yards. Under 61. Is the winner. So I'm 2 for 2, Al.
There was a point, I believe, when Miami was down maybe 21 or whatever, and they still ran Ajayi like 2 out of 3 plays when I thought that they would just come out flinging the ball like crazy. So I don't think they got away from it. I think they did whatever the situation called for in that regard, but it just so much went wrong for Miami. And now is we're going to find out against Arizona, how can they rebound? I think one of the phrases that came up in the post game was we have to make sure that one loss doesn't become 2. And they've always been on that one game at a time cliche and all. Well, they have to make sure that this game in no way has any relation to the next game.
Well, let's look at the rest of the schedule here. So, home for Arizona, you got to figure they'll be about a 3-point favorite. Help me out here. At the Jets first, right?
The Jets and Buffalo.
At the Jets, they'll probably be a slight favorite. Buffalo would probably be like a pick 'em.
That's going to be potentially in awful conditions.
So you
Christmas
go
Eve.
7-5. So let's say you split. Say you split Arizona and the Jets and Buffalo. I mean, really, 9-7 is what I thought was the cap for this team before the season. When they were 1-4, when they were 7-4, I still felt, based on the way the schedule was playing out. Chip wants to know, did you watch today? Yes, I did watch the game. Well, maybe he's commenting to someone else. I know we overreact after every game.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's only one game.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But all along, I felt that the talent of this football team was somewhere between 7-9 and 9-7. So if the Dolphins are able to win 2 of the final 4 remaining games, let's just say Arizona and Buffalo or Arizona and the Jets, you finish with 9 wins. You don't make the playoffs, and this season was still a great success. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. I think that when you look at the season as a whole and look at some of the intangibles, you have to be optimistic. You have to think that they're going to plug some of the holes that they weren't able to plug right off the bat in 1 year. And more than anything, you have to be optimistic in the attitude and just the change in atmosphere that Adam Gase has brought about. I don't think that there's anybody out there, despite what happened today, there can't be anybody out there who has any questions about Adam Gase and his ability to keep this team moving forward in the long run, even if it doesn't happen in the short run. And let's not forget the season finale against New England. We have to wait and see what that means. If it means nothing to New England, means everything to Miami, then that could suddenly become a little bit more balanced than we might think. Gronkowski won't be playing, of course.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly the chance that the Dolphins could finish 10-6 with a victory in that game and be alive in the playoff mix. We'll have to break down how they are in each of the tiebreakers. In your opinion, was coaching to blame for the loss? Look, I have not been a football coach. I did not play NFL football. So for me to sit there and say, you play, Al, you were a kicker. You can kick the ball longer than Andrew Franks.
I went and fetched the tee for kickoff.
Look, anytime you get drilled, did Adam Gase say we have to take some of the blame? I'm guessing he did. I was not in there. Because that's an Adam Gase thing. He says, we were outcoached. Did he say we were outcoached?
He didn't use that phrase. Okay. I mean, were they prepared to cover the tight end, for example?
Was he asked that specific question?
Well, I know he said that he acknowledged that it certainly was a big problem today. And just overall, did they come up with a scheme to put pressure on Flacco? Those are all legitimate questions.
I mean, anytime you lose 38-6, and there's not that type of talent disparity and gap between the two teams. In my opinion, similar talent between Baltimore and the Dolphins. Certainly, they got outcoached. They got outplayed. They got drilled. Brandon Albert said they got punched in the mouth, and they just need to try to find a way to bounce back. We'll see if that happens at Arizona. Make sure to read what we write on the Daily Dolphin at PalmBeachPostSports.com. And what do you have something specific? We already have 2 things posted, right? You have the grades with a bunch of D's and F's, and so please read that. And I have 5 instant takeaways, and I'm going to write about that long drive and about how they couldn't get off the field. That's what every guy said. We just couldn't get off the field. We need to find a way to get off the field. It's really crushing emotionally and mentally to a football player when you give up a third down, and then when you give up another one and another one. It just accumulates and mounts. It's miserable out. Not that I would know being out there, but these guys tell me. They fill me in.
Yeah.
What might you write about for tomorrow's paper? You got an idea or two?
Just the overall, where is this team? Where are they going? How do they bounce back? And the fact of a lost opportunity, because what if, let's turn this around for a second, what if they won by whatever score you want to toss out there? What if they won by 1 point? This whole thing would seem so different right now. They'd be above the cut line. They'd be on a 7-game win streak. This was a really important opportunity for them. And I'm sure that as they fly back in another few minutes, they're going to be heading back to South Florida. They're going to be thinking about that lost opportunity and how they get those kind of opportunities back in their midst once again.
Post on Dolphins on Facebook.com. go to the gas station, go to your local grocery store there in Palm Beach County and pick up an actual physical copy of the Palm Beach Post. And if you tweet the sports section at me tomorrow, I will retweet it, you and the newspaper. This is the box score in case you need to see that. No one has done this yet. Every week I challenge someone to tweet at Schad Joe an actual physical copy of the Palm Beach Post sports section, and I promise to retweet it. So if you have one tomorrow, please do that. Otherwise, catch us online, palmbeachpostsports.com. Hal, Habib, Joe, Schad, we appreciate you tuning in after a loss. Usually our numbers go up on wins, but sometimes after this game, I get the feeling people are going to want to know what that locker room was like, what Gase was like, and I'm sure you'll give us a good impression of how Adam Gase, because I wasn't around Adam Gase, but I want to hear how he seemed after this loss. See you next week, guys. Thanks very much.